to the webinar on the National Academy of Education Postdoctoral Fellowship application. My name is Jack Busby. I am the Senior Director of the National Academy of Education, overseeing professional development and membership. With me today is my colleague Taylor Johnson, Program Officer at the National Academy of Education. We are also joined by Dr. Luis Gomez, Chair of the Postdoctoral Selection Committee. Dr. Gomez is a Professor of Education at the University of California, Los Angeles. Just an overview of what we're going to be going over today. We'll start off with some technical remarks, just in case this is your first time using Zoom, followed by some fellowship information, a review of the portal, a section on writing for your audience, i.e. the selection committee, and then we're going to leave a good chunk of time for Q&A so that we can answer your questions. Just a note on that, if you would like to submit questions throughout the webinar, you can, but we will only answer them at the very end. And there will be, I know there's questions that come in early. It might be better just to hold off until the very end in case we do answer your question throughout the presentation. So if you have any technical issues or cannot hear us, please write to us via the Q&A box, which is in the lower right side of your screen. We'll respond to questions at the end of the webinar. You may type your questions into the Q&A box at any point during the presentation. We are recording this webinar, and we will post the recording on our website sometime within the next week. So, fellowship information. While this webinar is primarily about the application process, I do want to briefly describe the benefits of this fellowship. The fellowship is funded by the Spencer Foundation, and it is administered through us, the National Academy of Education. If you are selected, you will receive a non-renewable $70,000 stipend for 1 year, and you will attend 3 fellowship retreats held in fall of 2026, spring of 2027, and fall of 2027. The fall retreats are held simultaneously with our NAEd members' annual meeting. These retreats are a keystone of your fellowship experience. You will receive mentorship from a member or former fellow, network with your cohort and our membership, and attend programming related to your professional development. During your second fall retreat, you will present the results of your research as part of our Fellows Forum panels. Please note that retreat attendance is mandatory. You also have the option to participate in a poster presentation at ARA in 2027, and we will cover those travel and lodging costs for you to be able to attend. Regarding administration of the fellowship, you may directly administer your funds or request your university to administer them for you. We support either option and recommend you make this decision in partnership with your department. Okay. So some eligibility requirements. You must have had your doctoral degree conferred between January 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2024. Having your degree conferred means having the degree issued by the university and that you have it in hand. Applicants who graduated after 2025 will have to wait until next year to apply, and there are no exceptions to this policy. There are no residency restrictions to this award. You do not have to live in the United States, work at a U.S. institution, or have earned your degree in the United States, nor are you required to have a formal institution affiliation. Independent researchers may apply for the postdoctoral fellowship. U.S. citizenship is not required. Your project must be related to education, which we define very broadly. Formal and informal, K-12 and adult, professional education, in or outside of the U.S., and more. As long as it's within the realm of the field of education, we will consider it. We do not allow group applications. IRB approval is required of fellowship recipients, but you do not have to submit that documentation with your application. Finally, concurrent funding is not permitted. If you are awarded funding for your project from this postdoctoral fellowship, as well as another source, you must select only one source of funding for your project. All right. Here's an overview of the timeline. Once the application portal closes on November 13th, A&D staff will review applications for completeness and general appropriateness. Staff will then assign your application to 2 members of our selection committee. We try to closely align your research to the expertise of these reviewers, but perfect matches are often not possible. The committee will present their overview of the application materials during a meeting held in February of 2026. In March of 2026, we will notify you if you are moving to the semifinalist stage. We hold a second selection committee meeting in April of 2026, where we will select 25 finalists. We will then update you on your status in May of 2026. The fellowship begins September of 2026. And with that, I'll hand it over to Taylor.
Okay. So the application overview. So what you have in front of you is a screenshot of our application landing page. You'll be instructed to either log in and or to create a new account. However, when you do log in, please make sure that you're applying to the appropriate fellowship. Our top ribbon does indicate that we've administered multiple programs. So when you too log in and create an account, that you are appropriately applying for the postdoc fellowship. Something else to note is that if you experience any difficulties with the online application or something doesn't necessarily look right, please be sure to contact a staff member for assistance. So also, if you're a previous applicant, you need to ensure that you are starting a new application. Our team does not review applications that were submitted last year. And granted, you can copy over some of your data from last year if you were a previous applicant, but do know that we will only accept applications for the 2026 cohort. And so we're going to say it a plethora of times throughout this presentation, but please do note that the application deadline is November 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You and your references must meet this deadline. It's a hard date and a hard time, and we do not accept application submissions, additions, and or edits to your application after that time frame. So please make sure that you are mindful of the date and time and that you start and submit your application before this deadline. So something beneficial about our application portal is that you are able to save your progress, pause and resume throughout. So please definitely take the opportunity to create an account, get a feel for the questions that we're asking. For example, sometimes it's asking you to upload a document in PDF, sometimes it's fill in the blank, sometimes it's multiple choice. So get a feel for the questions that are being asked of you so that you can understand how long the application process is going to take you. Something to note is that you must complete all required fields to submit the application. Again, if you don't necessarily have the answer just yet, or you're pausing and resuming to work on your narrative, you can save and resume your progress. So you must submit all of the documentations in PDF and make sure that they're not locked. This not only minimizes the errors and difficulties later down the line, but also helps us as a administrative staff to streamline your process. And so, for example, sometimes we receive transcripts that are uploaded that can only be reviewed by the student or the institution, or sometimes access privileges lock us out after a certain period of time. And so when you are uploading this information and or when you're uploading this information in PDF format, please make sure that you remove any types of securities in that measure. Something that's very important to talk about, something that is very important to note is that your reference writers need to be notified that you're asking them to write you a letter of recommendation well in advance, explicitly because their deadline is also the same day as you, which is November 13th. But then also whenever you import their email address into our online system, you can click send and it will send an automated email to them. And so that way they have the list of instructions and additional questions to answer upon writing your reference letter. And so whenever you are completing your application, make sure that you import their email address correctly and notify them to anticipate an automated email from the National Academy. The application portal Yep. So the application portal uses email addresses to streamline our main method of communication. And so please ensure that when you are creating a login and or when you are uploading the email addresses for your reference letters, that you're importing that information correctly because email is our main method of communication. Finally, I'd like to close the review of the application with two pieces of advice. One is that all application components, including the letters of recommendation, are due November 13th at 5 p.m. However, we suggest that you submit your application ahead of time, especially as we have a handful of people applying and trying to submit all at once at the same time. Our system can be bogged down, and sometimes there is a slow glitch. There is a glitch, and or it takes a few tries to officially save and finalize your application. To the best of your ability, please don't wait until the last minute to submit your application to avoid those types of glitches. We want to make sure that it is marked as complete and it is officially in our system before 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then my second point of advice is that since we are a relatively small staff, we do have a difficult time keeping up with our info box. If you have questions later, if you have questions that are arising closer to the deadline of our application, it takes a little bit more time for our staff to get to them since our inbox is becoming flooded. So once again, take the opportunity to look at our application portal, get a feel for the questions, and if you have anything, please ask us before the deadline. And then again, please plan accordingly because it is a hard date and a hard time, and our team will not be accepting late submissions. And then I will move it forward to knowing your audience for writing your narrative to Dr. Gomez.
Hi, everybody. So a couple of things about your application. The first the first thing you should realize is who your audience is for your application, and a collection of two in particular, two education scholars will read your application, and you can expect the readers of your application to be broadly knowledgeable about our field, but maybe not exactly um, in the field that you're in. So think about your audience as broad. And you can expect that on the committee, there will be people who have expertise in almost any methodological approach that you will bring forward. So two things to keep in mind is one, write your application for a broad audience and be confident that your methodology will be understood and be able to be critiqued. As you think about that, locate yourself in your field of study. Remember that your job is to join a conversation and situate your work within not just the relevant history, but the current work involved in this field. You should be clear about the contributions that you expect this study to make, and how the results will have impact on the scholarship in the field, perhaps policy, perhaps practice. And your recommenders, the people you asked to write reference letters, should know you and both know your research, understand you as an emerging scholar, and and how they think about your work going forward. Remember to really lean into the importance of your topic, make it clear, and choose research questions that really matter to the field. If I had to offer you one important bit of information, make your method absolutely clear. The committee will pay a lot of attention to trying to understand exactly what you will do. Make it as concrete as you can. The committee should understand what the data are that you intend to use and how you intend to analyze and explore these data. I want to say that again, please make the data that you intend to use clear so the committee understands, and really help the committee understand how you intend to treat the data, and provide a clear timeline about the arc of the project, where you think the work is going to start and what you'll be able to get done by the end of the timeline. The committee will doesn't have to look at appendices. So appendices should be elaborative. They shouldn't be required to understand what's going on. Um, the narrative itself should include all critical information. And if you're going to include appendices and things like that, please be judicious. And again, make them not central, but elaborative to the point. Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gomez. Thank you, Taylor. And with that, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So please use the Q&A box and we will go through the questions. In the past, we usually get several questions right up front, so we will try to go through them. So if you just see us pausing, it's because we're reading and trying to go through the questions. If you have a very specific question about your project or you as an applicant, I'm going to ask that you please send that to the info box instead of putting it up here in the Q&A. And that way we can write to you with a lot more explicit answer. A few things while my colleagues look at the Q&A to find the first couple questions, just to reemphasize here. Um, Please remember the date and time. So we just went through this with the dissertation application. It is a 5 p.m. Eastern time deadline that applies to you, the applicant, and also the reference writers. So if you're on the Pacific Coast, that's 2 p.m. Pacific time that the deadline is on November the 13th. And if you're overseas, then please keep the time zone in mind for you. A couple other things for your reference writers. I highly recommend that you reach out to the reference writers before you submit their name as references for the application. And the reference writers also have to be people that know you as an applicant and your researcher as well. Please do not insert names in there of people that you do not know. We've seen this in the past, and that is not the purpose. You want to be putting in the names of people who know you as an applicant and your research as well. So with that, I'll pause and pass it to Taylor to see if she's found a question or two that we can kick off with.
Sure. So once again, I see the question pop up. Just to re-clarify, the automated email that is sent to your references will be saved and sent to them as soon as you click Save and Send. There's an option for you to input their email address and then you yourself send it out. And of course, our team will send out reminders. But in the portal, if you notice that it's getting closer to the deadline, you can also send them that link again so that they can upload those letters.
And to that end, please, applicants, do not put in a reference writer day of or even a day before or a couple days before. You really want to give your reference writers plenty of time to submit this. And submitting their name 2 hours before the deadline is not going to be beneficial to you. And you'll most likely not make the deadline either. We saw this with the dissertation application, so it is very common. So please do consider um, very highly who you would like to have as reference writers and give them plenty of time and notice to be able to complete the references in time of the deadline. I see a question here just re-asking about like who can apply. And the specific question is asking about researchers in Canada, but this applies to everyone. There is no bound to where applicants can come from. So this is open to globally. So Canadians, people in Europe, people in Africa, people in Asia, everyone can apply as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, which the main one being your degree being conferred. So you are not required to be at an institution. So if you're working for yourself, you are also welcome to apply for this fellowship. So, Dr. Gomez, I'm wondering if you can speak more about your experience when it comes to reviewing applications that may have pilot data, may not have data, and just how does that look for the application as a whole?
Um, we receive applications that have what you might call pilot data or applications that represent a continuation of a research theme that you've already been involved in. I think that from a committee perspective, the most important things in that regard are being able to differentiate what we see in the application as data and what you intend to collect if the application is successful. And I will say again that it's very important for the committee to understand the what the data are precisely. So if there's any place to lean into detail to help situate your application, having the committee understand what the data are is very important.
Thank you. Okay. Um, got a question in here about just linking. Um, know that the narratives where you should have all the information for the selection committee and our external reviewers to be able to read. If you do, so for that reason, I don't recommend linking. You should use the appendices, but if you do happen to link everything, then we're going to be telling our selection committee members to consider those as appendices and that they are not required to review that information. So you really do need to put everything that is important within the narrative, and you see appendices judiciously. Just for timeline here, everyone will, so when a review here, when we meet in February, after that February meeting, everybody will be notified in March whether or not they're moving forward as semifinalists or if they're not moving forward as semifinalists. Something that we also did not share in the presentation that we provide to all applicants, but this won't take place until I think June of 2026, is the reviewer feedback. So these are just comments that reviewers, external reviewers, selection committee members may have written regarding the applicant. And for many applicants, they find that very beneficial because then it gives some guidance on where improvements could be made. These are not deep feedback notes, but they will give you insight on how you might be able to improve your application if you wish to apply again in the future. And we provide that to everybody. So if you don't make it as a semifinalist, you'll get it. If you make it as a finalist, you'll get it.
We have questions regarding the timeline. In our website, we say between 1 to 2 years. Something to be mindful of is when you are submitting your application, it's to determine how long the duration you wish to take the fellowship. It can be anywhere from a minimum of 9 months to a maximum of 2 years. And that 2 years typically is because if you are taking leave from your institution and or place of work, we're ensuring that you have enough time to complete the fellowship / work on the project that you proposed. But also we note that sometimes it might be difficult to get such a large chunk of time away from work. And so the 2 year time span realistically allows us and or you to work at your institution for a semester and then take a semester of leave to work on the project, go back to your institution, and so on and so forth. And so we have flexibility in terms of your timeline and how and when you start that fellowship.
Dr. Gomez, we have a few questions here about how resubmitters, reapplicants might be able to improve their application. So as I shared, we do provide some feedback, but if there's any way that as you are reviewing as a committee member, if you're reviewing the applications, things that might be helpful for them to keep in mind as they resubmit.
Um, Maybe the first thing to say is that um, in the 2 previous years that I've been on this committee, I've seen reapplications that be successful the next time round. So the information that applicants receive is often helpful in recrafting the application for the next time round. Um, and as part of the application, applicants are asked to say if they applied in previous years. So readers will know that this is a reapplication, even though each cohort is a fresh and new cohort. Specific applications that are reapplications are known to the readers.
Thank you. I just see a technical question here, just asking about like, just in case your institution is not listed on the application, we do have like an other section or list your own. There's something in the drop down that says other or something like that. So go ahead and click on that, and then it should bring up a text box for you to write in your institution. But again, institution being at an institution is not a requirement.
Dr. Gomez, can you speak a little bit more as to what the committee looks for in their career statement?
Um, the careers, well, what the committee looks for, at least I look for as a member of the committee, and I'm assuming my colleagues are maybe similar, trying to understand both the arc of your growth and change as a researcher, but also your development of the question that's at the center of your application. And sometimes the questions that people bring forward are continuation of other research, like dissertation research. Sometimes it's a relatively new direction they're taking. And as a reader of a career statement, it's important to understand both your place in your career and how you think about it, and the place of the question in your career and how you're developing it.
So I see a few questions here that are just regarding like who should be reference writers. So I think I'll start this off, but then Dr. Gomez, I'll look to your guidance here as well. And some general points, you need three reference writers to submit for your application. Choose people who know you as an applicant. Choose people who know your research as well, because it does become clear when someone's submitting a reference and they have not had an opportunity to chat with you, or they don't know what your research is about. That comes through in the references. And the references are a very important part of the application itself. So I think those are just some general comments with Dr. Gomez. If you could share more, that'd be great.
Um, I can say that I believe that each of the two reviewers read the letters of reference in great detail. So what Jack just said is it's very important that the people you ask know you as a person and know you as a scholar. And both are important because the 25 people who go forward from this process are a cohort, and you have an opportunity to help one another along the way at meeting events and so forth. So it's important that we understand both the work you propose to do and have and especially in your letters, have people talk about the kind of person you are and your ability to work with others in this kind of cohort experience. So it's very important to understand both the work and, to the extent possible, the person.
Thank you. I have a question here about concurrent funding. So this is regarding funding for the project that you are submitting. So if you have some other research projects that you're working on and those receive funding, then the rules don't apply to it. What we are interested is in the one that's like being funded itself. And when it comes to concurrent, we're talking about other named fellowships too, or other named programs too. So if you were to get like an award from Ford or from some other larger or institution, then you would need to confer with us. If you receive another award from Spencer, because they do have like their mid-career or early career, they have their other awards going on right now. You would have to select one of them. Now, you are welcome to apply to multiple, but that are for the same funding or for the same project. But if you receive multiple awards, you will have to choose one. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Someone's asking us to elaborate further on our professional development retreats. And so, something to be mindful of is when we have the fall retreat, the spring retreat, and the fall retreat again. Those retreats typically range from 2 to 3 days. And so, something else to note is that when you are submitting your application, you don't necessarily have to account for those expenses. If awarded, our team will cover the expense to travel to Washington, D.C. to participate in the retreats. And then within those retreats, we also assign you a mentor, and that could be someone from our membership and or an alum who had previously applied for the postdoctoral fellowship and then received the award. And so when you are awarded, we assign you a mentor to help you through the process of completing your fellowship. But then also it's workshops and other presentations and panelists that you get to engage with when you are welcomed during the fall and the spring.
I have a question here about just the stipend. So the stipend will go to you, the individual, or you are also welcome to administer it through your institution. We are essentially giving you the stipend to be able to buy out your time so that you can focus on your research. Now, you may spread that stipend payment over the course of 18 months or 24 months, but essentially we're buying out your time for like a one academic year. We do have a guidance that we provide you on navigating how to use the stipend and negotiating with your institution. So we will provide that to you, but it is definitely a conversation that if you are a member of an institution that you should have with them on how to schedule your time to be able to both support the institution, but also focus on your research and also how to use the funds. So some institutions will ask you to direct the funding towards another source, maybe like a teaching aide or graduate assistant or something, and then they will continue to pay you with your salary, or they will just use the money from the fellowship to pay you a salary. There's different avenues here. So it's one that you definitely need to work with your institution, but the stipend goes to you, and you get to choose how to use it. Is essentially how we've structured things. But you do definitely need to have a conversation with your institution about the best way to be able to allocate and utilize the funds.
And then once you are awarded, we also give you those guidelines and we hope to help you negotiate with those types of questions. But then something else to note about the stipend slash budget is that we do not allow for overhead. And so that 70,000 is explicitly going for items that would help you successfully complete your fellowship. And so sometimes it is directed towards your leave in order to pay your salary for you to take research leave, but then also you can use it for research assistance. A lot of the times I've seen some technical equipment, so subscriptions to articles and magazines and things like that, archiving resources, hard drives and things like that. And so if your institution allows you slash yourself, if you allow yourself to purchase those other items, that is a permissible expense within that budget. And then again, just to reiterate, we ask for a formal budget once you have been awarded as well. So you can always update um, up until we officially give you those funds.
I have a question here about how many independent scholars have previously received the postdoctoral fellowship, but I'm going to broaden this to just being able to review who we funded in the past. So if you go to our website, naeducation.org, and then you hover over, actually, I should do this, and then you hover over the fellowships and grants menu, a drop down will come, and if you scroll down, you'll see a tab that says awardees. And if you click on awardees, you'll be able to see, you'll be able to sort, search, and filter through all of the fellowships and grants that we've provided in the past. And you can filter down to the postdoctoral fellowship. And you can see how many have been with an institution and have not been with an institution. I know we have funded those who have not been part of an institution. How many of them have been with a private organization? I think we've had the Smithsonian funded in the past too, as people who work for the Smithsonian. So I think the awardee page is a great page to be able to just see what we've funded in the past. So it also gives you an idea of the type of research that's been funded in the past. But it's not you shouldn't be looking at it and say, oh, I don't see my research area having been funded in the past. They're not going to consider me. That's not the takeaway I should take from looking at this. It just means that we haven't funded a research project in that field of education yet. So if you submit a very strong application within a field of education research that you are focusing on, then we will consider it and potentially fund it as well. You should look at this more of just like historically what has been funded in the past.
We have a question about publications and what sample that they should provide to the online portal. They're asking specifically if that publication should be aligned with that research topic. Can you provide further clarity as to like what you're looking for within those samples?
Um, it I think it's perhaps more helpful, though not necessarily required, that the sample be in some way connected to the idea in the application. And there are two things, perhaps obviously, that we would look for in particular. One is the extent to which the sample helps us understand if you know the field. And second, to the extent that the sample will help us understand if if the methodology you propose is something that you can accomplish or is accomplishable. Um, I think there are other things in the application that provide information about those two items, but the sample is often a really good place to get some insight into these.
Thank you.
Mhm. I have a follow-up question here for you, Dr. Gomez. If you could just share some common pitfalls of prior applications.
I mean, I know I sound like a broken record here, but I think the most common pitfall is walking away from an application and not completely understanding what is being proposed to be done. Applications are often at their strongest in setting up the problem and the question, and many applications are at their weakest at the transition from the question to the data and analysis. So I think the most common pitfall from my perspective is that. And if I think about the conversations that the committee has about applications, is that people often say, I'm not sure what's going on here. And readers go back and forth trying to figure it out. And I feel like in most cases, the best place to be in is to have the readers really understand what's going to be done.
Thank you.
We had a couple questions. It's a technical question about the career statement. Within our application portal, it's a short answer, and sometimes these questions will be asked short answer and or to upload a formal PDF. Again, if you haven't already had the opportunity to review, take a look at our website to see what format we're asking these types of questions. But to answer the question about our career statement, it's a short answer and it's about 500 words. And there's a prompt specifically asking you for more clarity on what that career statement might look like. We have another question about funding and what if you're not tied to an institution, how are you able to spend those funds? Again, you're able to spend those funds how you anticipate it being able to progress your research and progress your project. And so if that's hiring research assistants and or someone to transcribe videos that you're taking or materials to record and save information and data, and also, you're able to use those funds to travel to your research site. And so it could cover travel, lodging, and other accommodations in order to ensure that you make it safely to your site. But it's very broad how you spend those funds. And those questions are typically asked once you are awarded the fellowship.
Just a quick answer here. This question, I think it's asking if you were a former dissertation fellow, do you have preference for the postdoc fellow? But the answer, if that's the question, the answer is no. But basically, you don't have to be a former dissertation fellow to receive the postdoctoral fellowship. And I think most postdoctoral fellows have not received the dissertation fellowship. Now, of course, we do have some that have received both of them. But I'd say the majority of postdocs have not received the dissertation fellowship. So we do have a question here about like scope, and Dr. Gomez, I'll look to you for, further expansion. But one of the key things that the committee is looking at is the feasibility of the project being able to um, be done during the fellowship period, or how the fellowship will assist you in the work that you're trying to do. And that is a consideration that the committee will discuss while they're reviewing your application. But Dr. Gomez, can you expand on that?
I think that's the most important aspect of the answer. The other thing that might be helpful, sometimes applications come forward where the work is a part of other work, ongoing projects. And what's important in this regard is helping the committee to understand the boundaries of the work that you're applying for in this instance, even if it's part of a larger effort.
And I have seen a couple questions about that, so do you mind expanding a little bit more?
Um, for example, projects have come forward where there is um, the project might involve um, a lot of technical work that's either computational or statistical modeling work and coupled to some sort of behavioral work. And the applications that kind of blend these or conflate these, where the committee can't understand what exactly is this applicant applying to do, the behavioral work, for example, or the modeling work. It becomes very difficult to understand what we are seeking, what we're trying to award. So oftentimes projects have many facets, and it's really important for the committee to understand the facet that you're doing and the facet that you are expert in.
Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of questions here are just about like word length, page limits, formatting. We have all this information on our website, and we also have this information on the portal. Please do, if you have not had the opportunity yet, to go on naeducation.org, go to the Fellowship page. On the page itself, if you scroll down, you'll see several tabs there with FAQs, resources, application components, which will break down all the different requirements. But you also are welcome to begin the application and go in there and see if there's any kind of additional limits that are placed on any of the sections that we have. Um, our application portal or our application is not a start in one sitting and submit. You may start, save it, and come back to it later. So if you do have any questions regarding length or character limits or word limits or requirements, those are the two resources that I recommend that you check out, our page and also the portal.
We have a question about feasibility. And so, what are some recommendations for ensuring the research project you propose is feasible within the fellowship timeframe?
Um, well, the timeline's a big help, right? I mean, helping us, I mean, it sort of represents a specific document that tells us how you envision it unfolding. And feasibility is also about having it be clear in your either in your career statement or in the writing sample or from your letter writers that this work that you're proposing to do is both accomplishable and accomplishable in the time frame allotted by someone who has a set of skills that you do. So it is feasibility information comes from several sources, but feasibility information is something that the committee pays a lot of attention to.
To follow up on that, someone is asking specifically what happens if they have an application that is too ambitious and tries to tackle too many goals versus someone who's really limiting themselves to ensure that it's feasible? Is there like an in between of how many goals or how someone should reiterate that they're ambitious about the project but also don't want to limit themselves?
Well, I'm sure there is a sweet spot. I wish I were better at being able to articulate what that thing is, but I, I mean, and I guess I think that committee members probably, um, well, I'll put it this way: committee members probably vary in how they value these things, and if, for example, the the research conversation you're joining is one that is deep with lots of experience and lots of examples from the literature, what is feasible is gonna, I won't say be known, but there's a lot of information about what's accomplishable in what kind of time frame because the literature is so deep and rich. On the other hand, if you come forward with a project that's joining a conversation that's relatively new and it's not at all clear what all can be done because the area is so new, the committee is going to understand and respect that. So context matters. So in places where there's a deep and rich experience, you kind of expect applicants to understand what's doable. In contexts that are new and less well defined, we expect applicants to be at a different place in the conversation. And therefore, the ability to talk about what's feasible is going to be a little different.
We have a question about adding figures and images to the project description. Um, as figures and letters would realistically expand your page limit, I'd recommend adding those to your appendices, but of course you can reference them. But then again, ensuring that if you are adding information to your appendix, that you are really describing it in that narrative portion of it. And so, yes, we do allow for figures and images, but be mindful that it would count against your word limit if you do not put it in your appendix.
Can I add to that?
Mhm.
I mean, I think for me, it's all trades. So if you take some of your narrative real estate for a figure, um, be convinced that the figure really, um, in this case, the picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's it is often the case that diagrams can help in ways that lots and lots of text can't. But I think um, what you said, Taylor, is absolutely important. Is being judicious. And so if you're going to add a figure, and especially if you're going to add it to the narrative, be convinced that it's really worth its weight in gold.
Dr. Gomez, I have a question here that I'm going to broaden, but basically it's asking if an applicant is trying to look into an area that might be outside their expertise, but they're going to be bringing in a new lens to the study, or the audience might be different than what they have previously researched in the past, what might they do to be able to submit a strong application?
I think in a case like that, among the things that are important is when two things. Help the committee understand how you got to this place given where you came from. And second, if it's a brand new area, well, in two ways. A thing could be a brand new area for you, or it can be you're trying to open up a relatively new conversation in the field. In this second case, it is very important that you build the argument so people can see why this is an important question to be asked. In the former case, it's important that the committee understands something about your development that got you to this new question. And I guess at the root of both these answers is that none of these things spring forth from nowhere. They all have a history, and that history is important to understand as you make the case.
Thank you.
We have a question about proposing a project with partners within the community. And they're wondering if those collaborations need to be established before applying or that they can be continuously being established as you complete your application.
Um, I believe the short answer to that question is yes, that they can be. But I feel like at the root of a question like this is, again, an issue of feasibility. If the proposal is to work with a community that there's no evidence in the document that no previous connections exist or that there isn't a well-defined set of ideas to get to and establish, among other things, trust in that community, it's going to be hard to understand how we get there.
Mhm.
But the community can grow as a function of the work, especially if the committee understands that there's history and access that's clear.
And I'll just add, I do recall proposals in the past where the researcher wanted to conduct a project with a community where they had not established a history yet, and it did not move forward in the end, because the feasibility wasn't there to be able to accomplish the research. think we might have time, Taylor, for one more question.
Mhm.
And while Taylor looks for that, we'll go ahead and I think she has a sharing, so she'll be able to share the screen, the PowerPoint slide, so that we can go ahead and put that email for you to write to us if you have any questions. But just in case, it's info@naeducation.org. If we did not get to your question today, please do email us at that email address, and we will get back to you hopefully within the next couple of business days. But again, a reminder that the deadline is, there we go. The deadline is November 13th, and I think we'll have one more question from Taylor.
Yes. Sorry. Um, I guess so. I skimmed a question about research methodology and if there are taking different methods of research in order to successfully propose this proposal. Is there any way that they can further elaborate, like why their methodology is important and how they got to this stage when explaining their narrative?
Um, I mean, I feel like the answer to this question is in the basic answer to this question is in the usual way that I'm sure most, if not all of you, are familiar with. I mean, you will successful applications do a great job of connecting the core theory and problem to methods that make sense in their elaboration. So when the committee reads your application, the bridge from the theoretical ideas to the practical implication and method should be clear. And in this way, I mean, this is the work that you you all have been doing for your careers to this point. So, I mean, the idea is to do well what you already know how to do.
Well, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Taylor and Lewis here for being part of this presentation. Really appreciate your time. For all the attendees, really appreciate your time as well. We have recorded this session and we will post it online. We will go ahead and email everybody who registered when the recording is available, but it should be within the next couple of days. We'll have it on our website. That's all the time we have for questions today. Again, please email us at info@naeducation.org if we did not get to your question or if you think of a question later on. And with that, just a big thank you to all the attendees and our panelists. Really appreciate it. Thank you.